Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new year. We are back. And today we are back with a phenomenal guest. Um, his name is Hyren Peterson. Hyren worked for over a decade for Unilever and spent half of their time in Southeast Asia. He's a brother from another mother. Hyren, welcome to Abrasive Conversations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today, Jacob.
So, Hyren, let's start at the beginning. Please tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you're doing, and why are you sitting in the hot seat today?
Cool. So I'm 32. I'm originally from Uppington, a very small town in the Northern Cape. I am, up until recently, as you mentioned, worked for Unilever, where I was the HR Director. And now I am the head of change and transformation at Maersk. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I don't agree with you that Uppington is a small little town. That place is massive. We even have an international airport. So we agree to disagree.
Okay, no problem.
But,
no problem.
But maybe because it is the cities that you have seen.
The experience, maybe.
Yeah.
In comparison, it's
in
small.
comparison,
Yeah.
yes.
True.
Right. So let's start with your prolific and amazing career. So you studied at UWC, where you passed your undergrad and postgrad with cum laude. So after this stellar undergrad and postgrad career at UWC, your studies, I know your work ethic. It was amazing. But the nice thing about your work ethic is also there was always room for enjoyment.
It's very important to have fun.
The days of the barn. So with your amazing work ethic, but also giving yourself time to rest and enjoy yourself, you decide to choose a career in HR.
Yeah.
Why did you choose a career in HR?
So I must admit, after matric, I was quite indecisive about what I was going to do, and I wasn't very clear around, what I could choose as a career. And most people have that kind of planned out, or the people that I knew in the circles that I ran with. So I just chose a BCom degree to study, and for the most part, I didn't really like the content of the degree. But there was one class that I completely, I would say it was almost like love at first sight, was industrial psychology. And when I went to that first class and that lecturer explained kind of what industrial psychology was about, the science behind it, and how the human resource department can really kind of elevate a business from a people perspective, I was hooked, right? I kind of just knew that this was going to be my career, and I've never looked back since. So I still, after almost 11 years of working in HR, still love it very much. I do love my job. And I don't think I made the wrong decision in that particular case.
I also don't think you made the wrong decision because where you ended up in your journey, and I've been following it over the years, have been quite amazing. So you choose a career in HR, and then you start at Unilever's graduate program. So you start there. Which year was that?
It was 2013, yeah.
2013 you're starting with the graduate program, and it was not the best start to such a graduate program. But then you rose from, I would say, nowhere through the ranks. So briefly take us through your early journey and lessons that come from it.
Great. Thank you for that question. I love telling the story because I think it's important. I think oftentimes when you see people with titles like director or head of whatever, you kind of think that they didn't go through hardships. And sometimes there's this perception that leadership is all about just being hard, but it's actually about being authentic and telling the story of how you got there, because we all know what it's like to fall. So the Unilever graduate program is called the Unilever Future Leaders Program. It's intended to get graduates through fast-track them to management positions. And it's a 3-year program. It's very competitive. Out of the 2,000 plus applications that I applied in that year, only 8 of us got accepted. And it was intensive, right? They give you real responsibility. And I had moved then from Cape Town, where I studied, to Durban, where I knew absolutely no one. So the pressure of having to work, I was also trying to finish my master's degree. And I was obviously in a new city, completely devoid from the natural support group that I had. And after 7 months, the decision was made to take me off of that program. So the program has a principle called up or out. So you either continue, do well in the program and continue, or they make a decision to take you off the program. You still have a job within the company, but you're no longer part of the program. And that was actually one heartbreaking. It's probably the first ever failure that I've ever experienced. And it took me years to get over that. I remember after getting promoted to a manager finally, it wasn't 3 years, it was like 4.5, maybe 5 years later. I didn't feel vindicated though. And it's so funny because I was completely heartbroken, Jacob. I don't know how else to explain it because, failure is not something that I'm accustomed to. It's something that I don't do. But the lessons that I learned from that, I think the first thing is retrospectively, if I look back, the first thing is that I wouldn't be the leader that I am today without that failure, because now I have compassion for people who struggle. The second thing is if I saw modeled behavior from leaders that I don't want to, I would never encourage and I don't want to mimic, right? And if it had to happen to me, for me not to do that to someone else, fantastic, right? And I think the third thing is that it teaches you grit and resilience. Not that as South Africans we need more lessons in grit and resilience, but for me personally, like getting through that year, it's almost like I could take a breath because I was like, shit, you've made it through at least this thing. And so those lessons are things that you carry with you throughout your life, right? And at the time that it happened, I remember walking through the turnstiles at work and I was crying, right? But looking back now, I'm super grateful it happened. And that's how lessons are, right? You learn them in retrospect. You learn them by looking back and kind of, taking something from that and growing from that failure. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. I think one of the things that will stuck with me for some time after this conversation is that we all are used to fall.
Yeah.
And it was so literal for me when you said it, is because growing up,
children fall.
Children fall.
Yeah, we all fall.
It's like we all fall. It's like, but we some way society, kind of lie to us that you're not supposed to.
And even if you fall, you're not supposed to tell that you fell, or you have to hide your tears, or you have to paint this picture. It's insane, and because it's the human condition. It happens to every single person. And that's some of the lies that we're trying to deconstruct here. Yeah, and that I particularly like to just tear apart because it's untrue.
All right, so you're off the program.
Yeah.
So how did you make it back to the top? How did you?
Goodness.
No, it's
I'm
a
trying
good
to
question.
think. It's a very good question. Look, I think what happened was I think I'm a naturally assertive person, and I've always said, I think I posted a status a couple of days ago where I said, for most of my life, I think my success was driven by my innate need to prove people wrong. If someone said to me, you can't do something, let me tell you, I will do that very thing. And so when I was going through this process, one of my managers said to me, why don't you just look for another job outside? And I was planning to do that. But now, just because she said it, I was like, now I'm not going to do that. And I will show you, right? So anyway, I don't know if it's pity, if it's unhealthy, I don't care. It helped me through, right? So I think, you grovel. You do anything and everything you can to make it back to the top. And for me, it wasn't really about getting back to the top. I think the first thing was just to rebuild my confidence. Because I think something like that, where you're so used to and accustomed to, if you put in the work, you're used to getting an output. And in this case, I felt like what I had put in, the effort that I had put into to then succeed, did not it didn't kind of match the output. And so it took a long while just to kind of heal my self-confidence, and so many people said in that year, you don't look the same, you're not as bubbly as you used to be. but it takes a knock on your self-confidence. So that year was just trying to get back to a sense of normalcy and kind of dealing with, it was a trauma to me, to be honest. And I think the subsequent years that have now, that have gotten better, I think one is you just engage that part of you that I know I can be successful if I work hard. If I put my mind to something, there's going to be somewhat of an output that matches it, right? That's the first thing. I think the second thing is by surrounding yourself with leaders and people that believe in you. Sometimes the greatest thing is, you don't see your worth until someone tells you, and it's incredible. So I remember this conversation with one of the managers. Her name is Rajesh Pillai, and we sat at it was past lunchtime, so it was like completely quiet, and I was just telling her about my story, how I was feeling, and she said to me, she feels like I'm fighting for a seat at the table, and she's like, but you're already seated at the table. And that was something in my head like exploded, and I was like, wow, that is so incredible, because here I was trying to just fight to be seen, and people were, and remembering what had happened to me and thinking that everyone had remembered and thought about, oh, you're the guy that got taken off the program, and no one was thinking that. Everyone was just like, okay, cool, Hyren is doing well, awesome, and I was carrying the baggage. So sometimes we have our own self-limiting beliefs and our own traumas that come back and haunt us. So I would say it was hard work, because you can't get anything done without that. But I also think that leaders, mentors, friends, and people who believe in you and who can, oftentimes guide you to say that belief that you have actually is not true about yourself. You're doing great, you're doing amazing, and sometimes you just need someone to tell you that. Yeah.
I love what you said about the seat at the table, and I've also find myself sometimes fighting, and then I'm realizing, but you're already seated. You invited. You're sitting.
You might be one of the inviters to the table, even without knowing. So important.
So sometimes it's good to take a step back.
Yeah.
But I know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Well, we grow up in societies of competitive nature, things
Yeah.
where we are set up from an early age to fight the next person to make it out.
Yeah. It's a mindset. It's a mindset of lack. There is only one piece of the pie, and if anyone else gets to this piece of the pie, I'm not going to eat. Instead of thinking there's an abundance. If this opportunity, then the next. If not this job, then the next. You know what I'm saying? So, but because of our situations in South Africa and how we grow up, like literally fighting sometimes for a piece of bread, that would do something to you in terms of even the corporate world, where this behavior is almost encouraged a little bit. Like, there's only one job and there's only one promotion, or only a few can get, that thing that everyone wants, and you have to kind of fight for it. So it does touch on that a little bit as well. Yeah.
Right. But after that, you actually were sent on a mission. Go represent us, because you're doing amazing things. So you got an opportunity to represent a company in Southeast Asia, and as you've told me, it's like you lived all over Southeast Asia, and we'll get into that just now. But how did it come about? Why you?
Sorry?
Why you?
Why me? Oh, wow. I think it was a little bit of, I don't believe in luck, but I do believe in, right times and right opportunities, and sometimes your willingness just to also, be ready for the opportunity that is presented to you. By then, I was 4 years in the business. I had now completely, in my mind at least, fully, put behind me this thing around not being on the program any longer. And I was kind of doing well. And I remember asking one of the leaders, like, look, I'm seeing everyone else going on short-term assignments. I know that, it's an investment in someone, because they give you everything essentially to go across. I would also like to go. Literally, it wasn't even 2 months later, I had an interview, And 2 months later, it was confirmed that I was going to go to Singapore. So that was my first international assignment, essentially.
Okay. So what does this international assignment entails?
So essentially, because at the time Unilever still is a global company, one of the key kind of talent principles that we use is talent mobility. And because we have offices in I think it was 189 plus countries, obviously the opportunity exists to kind of exchange talent for growth and development opportunities. And there was a post open in Singapore in the global procurement team at the time, where I think one of the managers went on maternity leave. And in Switzerland, I think your maternity leave is actually much longer than we have. And so they needed to get someone for at least a year and a half to kind of work in that person's place. So that's two things. One, obviously develops the talent, and two, South African business gets something out of it in terms of the person comes back and can do bigger jobs in the future. Yeah.
Okay, so then you move to South. You said Singapore.
Singapore, yeah. Singapore.
So you moved to Singapore and you stayed there for?
I was in Singapore for 1 year.
For 1 year.
Yeah.
But then it didn't stop there.
Yeah. I must say, the first 6 months, all I wanted to do was come back home. In the last 6 months, all I wanted to do was not come home, right? And so the next opportunity that I got was to do an HR business partner job in the Philippines, and actually work with the same manager I'd worked with and for in Singapore, because she enjoyed working with me, and I think we just hit it off, right? And so when she moved as the HR vice president for the Philippines, she then opened up an opportunity for me to go to the Philippines as well.
Okay, but it didn't stop there.
My assignment in the Philippines got extended probably 3 times. I was supposed to be there for a year, ended up being there for almost 3 years. And then I also then got an opportunity to go to London, the UK. So I didn't apply for this job. There was an opportunity to do a global employer brand job, which is that's the coveted job, right? Everyone wants. There's one of these jobs available in the whole of Unilever. It works directly with the chief HR officer and your CEO at the time. So, you apply for this job. The person who said to me, she's like, before I applied for the job, I had a conversation with the hiring manager, and she said, you're probably not going to get it. And I didn't want it, actually, to be honest. And then because she said that, I was like, well, now I'm going to show you that I want it. Now I want it, right? So I came with presentations. I was like, okay, let me crush this, right? I'm going to go over and above, and I got the job.
All right. So how is it to work in Southeast Asia? What were some of the biggest challenges for you?
Sure. Whereas South Africa is a country where I guess there's this, we have this principle of Ubuntu. Southeast Asia, but in particular Singapore, people are very insular and very individualistic. So when you initially get there, the shock of just if you greet someone and they don't greet back, that's already like a shock to the system. Because in South Africa, at least, you meet someone, you at least acknowledge their existence with a nod of the head. Nothing, right? So Singapore is one of those countries. The food was actually, I didn't know that the food was going to be as big of an issue, but it became a massive issue. Like, I actually think it had an impact on my mental health. And there was another guy from Honduras that I met there, and another guy from Turkey. And they have like similar cuisines, right? Sort of, like we know their food, and they also know good food. And like it's a very departure from their food to Asian food. We had like long conversations about how we miss our home food and how we can't find something that is, like at least close to what we know. So that became a big challenge. So I would say one is that individualism. And then 2, like food in general, yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the biggest lessons? Because those are the challenges.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's 2 things that you learn from an individualistic nature. I think sometimes in South Africa and Africa at large, the spirit of Ubuntu is often used to exploit people. And it's this whole thing about give of yourself, of your resources, of your time, and of your energy without any boundaries. And I think that's actually super unhealthy. What I learned there is that, for instance, it's a small thing, but I just took such a big lesson out of it. I think, I asked a friend for a lift, and she said, okay, I'm leaving at 4. And I had a call that was just 5 minutes past, and she left me. And she's like, no, but you're not here at 4. Then you're dependent on me to go home, or you're going to have to take the bus or whatever, So if you're not here at 4, then I'm leaving. Now in South Africa, you would have been pissed at your friend, like, dude, it's 5 minutes. No. It's like, it's 5 minutes. And I like that, because I think we don't set healthy boundaries, especially in colored communities and colored families. We don't know what healthy boundaries look like. Saying no is almost like a sin. So that's what I learned from that experience, is to stand in your power in terms of being able to say no, having boundaries, and people who truly love you will understand what you're trying to do. So I think that's the biggest lesson I learned.
All right, so then you return to South Africa. So now looking back, how do you look at South Africa? How did you back here?
When I look at South Africa, I think the thing that I've always that always comes up for me is opportunity. I think we have the most amazing resources, and like when I say that, I think people are so incredibly. I think we underestimate the ability of South Africans to change the world, and the reason I say that is, from all the South Africans that I've met in all of my travels across the globe, we have this cultural intelligence that is so necessary in the world. So we can thrive anywhere. I have friends in Netherlands, in Singapore, Australia, everywhere, essentially. And that's the one thing where South Africans just acclimatize wherever they go. And they often just become like one of the best workers in their specific field because of that cultural intelligence. So I believe that there's so much opportunity when I look at South Africa, barring all of the things that we have wrong in this country. I just believe in the collective potential of our people. Yeah.
Would you say that you have a much stronger national identity?
I definitely would say that. I think it sometimes takes going out and then coming back for you to realize that it's not all bad, but also just the connection that you have to South Africa is often, it's to the land, to the people, to your friends, to your family. That's important, and I think that does make part of your national identity. And I would say I'm a proud South African, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So then you came back and you were just here in COVID, and as you know, COVID has caused people major mental issues.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into that.
Yeah.
But something happened to you last year. Mm-hmm. It's like you had a major surgery. So locked up during COVID, major surgery, and you were sitting here. So you got through the surgery, and since then I've seen a kind of a change in your approach to life.
Yeah.
What happened?
Sure. I think for the biggest part of my career, a big part of my identity was woven into the work that I did. And I was aware of it. And I even, one of the conversations I had with my mentors and my boss at the time, I was saying to her, like, my goal is to decouple my worth from the work. And of course you want to do work that you're proud of, but I think it was getting to an unhealthy place for me where I was, everything was work related. I even always stayed close to the office for some reason. And that's why this year I made a conscious effort to be like, no, I want some physical distance between where I live and where my office is. I think when you go through, something like that, like almost that's life-threatening, there is a major shift that happens from a kind of a mental, psychological perspective. And for me, that was that I no longer want to have work Hyren be the only Hyren that exists. I am a person with multiple talents, with multiple interests, and I want to explore all of those. And I think that led to probably my decision to kind of like separate from my organization, to be like, I need a fresh start in that sense. So that taught me that, people will you are replaceable at work, irrespective of how good you are, right? Is that if you're not going to look after your mental health, no one else will. And even if your company has the best mental health, programs, it's not going to change unless you yourself heal that part of you that believes that I need to kill myself to be worthy, right? So those are the lessons, I would say.
Oh, that is actually quite deep when you say I have to kill myself to be worthy. That shit is deep, and it will stay with me for a little bit, for a while. But this is the thing, brother. I want to tell you, was like, and I've been following. Sometimes I don't check in with people. But I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm supporting. Like, none of this I research.
Yeah.
Because I know your journey. So because I'm invested in your journey, and the one thing that I didn't see was the artistic Hyren.
Yeah. Wow.
You're fucking great poet.
Yeah, I love poetry. Goodness.
You draw. There's other side to you that is just suppressed. But I think you kind of figured out, and you said there is more to you. And what I would like to see is more that side.
Yeah.
Coming alive. Because if you can achieve what you have achieved by just pure mental grit and work ethic in the corporate space, imagine what the other Hyren.
Yeah.
Hyren could
reintroducing myself to him, and it's really awesome actually. Like, I'm getting to know that part of myself again, which is awesome. Yeah.
No, I was if you are a bloody good poet and artist. I don't know how you forgot it. So you then left Unilever and you have a new position in Cape Town, and you've mentioned it before. So you're back in a colony, so the Cape Colony. So experiencing different parts of South Africa and the world, do you think that Cape Town is one of the most racist places in the world?
Yes, I would absolutely say that. I think, that's from lived experience, as well as, I think, just hearing other people's stories. I think Cape Town is set up in a way that's exceptionally exclusionary to people of color. And even like the physical, apartheid that still exists is incredible in this place, in space. And then just, I think, the mental attitudes of people still is very much steeped in racism. I'll give you an example. So recently moved back, trying to find a place. And I've heard the horror stories, of people trying to rent places in Cape Town. You have to fill in like 1,000 and 10,000 forms. I even have to send my tax information, which I think is ridiculous, by the way. I would have never struggled. I didn't even struggle in Durban. All those people want is their money. They like, here's the 3 things you need to fill out. I had a place within 10 days. I still don't have a place, by the way, but anyway, that's fine. So I just think that it's set up in such a way that it's completely exclusionary. Even the amount of deposit that you need to pay is like 20, it's nothing less than 20K for a 10K place, 20, 26, 30,000. Who has 3,000 Rand laying around? And then also just the amount of people vying for places obviously also is part of the issue. But I think super exclusionary, and it's for the first time probably that I experienced this, and I must say it's not a nice experience. It does feel dehumanizing in a sense, and that fucks with your identity a little bit. Like, oh my god, this colored person trying to make it in Cape Town. I'm this person. I'm an HR director. How dare I not find a place? They don't care. You can be a doctor. You can be a lawyer. They don't care. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my experience as of late. But yeah,
I have a different view.
Go for it.
I think it's one of the least racist places in South Africa.
In South Africa. Okay.
Because I traveled rural South Africa.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. See, what I think is that rural South Africa has a racism that's pure and in your face. Cape Town has a racism that is insidious and you don't even know it's there, which is even more dangerous. Because if you come up to me and you say, I'm a racist and I don't like you colored people, you know what? I respect you. I can deal with that because it's to my face. But if you come to me and you say, oh, sorry, you can't find this place, and it's all behind the scenes, that is something that I can't deal with because it's insidious, it's behind the scenes, it's actually more dangerous, right? So you don't know that this person carries this belief about you, but it comes out and it manifests in different ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. In the place that I come from, Butterfontein, I stay in town, dorp.
Altijd die dorp. Altijd de dorp.
Altijd de dorp. And I have a neighbor next door that doesn't like us.
But at least you know.
At least you know. So I agree with you in that part. So if it's more in the open, you can deal with it. But it does fuck with you.
Yeah.
When you, like, why?
By virtue of the fact that my skin color is brown, you don't like me. Of course, there's like deeper connotations about the beliefs that people carry and the biases. Brown people are stupid, or all they do is drink, and that's like, no, you don't know me, you don't know what I'm capable of. And it's sad because you actually you missing out on meeting incredible people. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, and the one thing that I've seen is how people in Cape Town is racist, but the way I see is that race have taken a new form, especially in Cape Town, and this model is actually going across the world. And that form is not based on skin color or it's based on money.
Money. Financial racism.
It's so and that's the exclusionary that people.
Yeah.
So people doesn't care who's living next door to me, what skin color, what you eat. It's like, can you afford it?
It's a big one, and it's becoming more and more. I would say Johannesburg, absolutely. They don't care about, can you afford to pay your way through, right? Doors open because of the money instead of, now doors opening because of your skin color. But that's also steeped in racism because then, who has money and, you know what I'm saying, who has access, who has power, and those are the things which we need to talk about, yeah. So
and that is where I wanted to go, is that, so that's still the large kind of reality in South Africa, that the majority of people who have money is white people.
Absolutely.
But I'm living in this complex. I've lived in Tiger Waterfront. I've seen people in Welgemoot. Jesus, Welgemoot is rich. It's crazy. I've seen people living in Constantia, and it's sometimes it's a melting racial pot. So it's all about,
new money and old money coming together.
Can you afford it? And then you start excluding those that doesn't have. You put security companies to police those things. Yeah. Sometimes if I see people walking here, like, why is this people walking?
you adopt the attitude because you're like, this is not, you don't look like you belong here, and it's quite dangerous because your own kind of biases comes out, right? Which also people don't want to talk about. Colored people don't want to talk about their anti-blackness, which we know is very, very deep, runs deep in this country. So that it adds to the melting pot, as you said.
So Hyren, before we say goodbye and end this conversation, I think people, if they've come this far listening to this conversation, they would be convinced that you are an amazing person, that you have a phenomenal work ethic, and that you're clear on what you want and where you're going. Yeah. But they're also convinced that you made it in various places. So do you have any advice for black graduates who want to enter the corporate world?
Sure. I think here's the reality, is that not all of us grew up with parents who were investment bankers or know anything about corporate. And oftentimes, just the knowledge that is shared at the dinner table. Do we even have a dinner table? Lol. Is so important oftentimes, and that gives other people advantages above it. So I think there's a couple of things. One is that you'll need to get comfortable in the discomfort of having to work sometimes twice as hard as your peers to make it work. And when I say harder, it's not about your output, but I'm saying that you start to need to understand the business that you're working in a bit more. You'll need to do a little bit more in terms of networking and understanding and building your network of people around you. That takes time. You will need to be more focused than you've ever been, because if you want financial freedom, that means sacrifice, right? That means that when you start working, you'll need to start learning good saving habits and investments and buying properties and all of these things. So that's why I'm saying, like, you have to work harder. That's something that I had to do. A lot of my friends who are colored black had to do, and that's just the reality of it. So I think when you get into that, that's the mentality that you need to have, and kind of like just brace yourself for that. I think the other thing is that build a network of people around you that can help you. I think you can't do this alone. And the way that I've done that is through mentors, through friends who've built their experiences, because sometimes you don't share those experiences and you feel very alone. You feel like I'm the only one that this is happening to. But there's a lot of other people that are experiencing the same thing. And because we don't talk about it, we don't get to share that experiences that can help us, So I think that's the other thing that I would give as an advice to. And the third one is, I think, invest in yourself. And when I say that is, once you get to know who you are, and once you're clear on who you are, your purpose, everything else kind of falls into place, right? Because I think a lot of people lose direction in their life because they don't know who they are. They don't spend time with themselves. They don't spend getting to learn about themselves. And I just believe that life is so much about coming into a friendship with yourself. The same grace and mercy you would extend to a friend is what you need to extend to yourself. The same investment that you would make in building a friendship with someone, build that for yourself as well. And that's super important, because once you get, to the higher levels of an organization, it's no longer about who you know, it's about who knows what you know, right? Yeah.
Hyren, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
This was a pleasure. It was a privilege to have this conversation with you. And I am hopeful that this conversation will bless a lot of young graduates, but also give seasoned career, not just in HR, but across the corporate sector and whatever sector. You kind of give them a new breath of life.
Thank you so much, Jacob.
Thank you very much for coming.
Awesome.